Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we move on, I would like to introduce at this time Mr. John Mrazek, presenter, and Terry Costen, on behalf of Joseph Costen, please come forward and be inducted into the hall.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to all the inductees this evening, and in particular, three of my football guys making it tonight, and that's always a pleasure. Tom, terrific. Sean, very proud of you guys. Big part of my life, and terrific. Congratulations. I'm going to start off relating to you what Coach James Healy said about Joey Costen. So this is not from me. This goes way back to the 77 season. Typically, coaches sit around and talk about, well, what do we expect this season? And Coach Healy said, we discussed, we had a good quarterback, Mike Coyle, and he said about long and lean. When I think of Joey Costen, I think long and lean, 6'3", about $170, and tough as nails. Long and lean Joe, or Joe the Tough. And Coach Healy said, I think we really have a special kid here in the Costen kid. He said, I think he's going to make a lot of big plays for us this year. You know, the first big game with Tantascwa was coming up, and boy, you really hope that was going to be the case. And Tantascwa was supposed to be a very good team, and it turned out to be a good team. And in the game, who scored 2 long touchdowns? Big 40-yard touchdown, big 30-yard touchdown, resulting in an 18-14 Bartlett win. Joey Costen. So I remember talking to Coach Healy, said, hey Jim, you really hit that one. That Costen kid was really good. Even more impressive is when we played a very good St. Bernard's team. St. Bernard's was a real solid team. We defeated them that day 17-12. Now keep that in mind, 17. Well, Joe scored on a like a 20-yard touchdown pass. Now, I'm not sure if this is a record because, you know, I don't recall what I had for breakfast, so I'm not sure about this. But Joey caught a pass and went 87 yards for the touchdown. 87 yards. Now, maybe they've been longer, but I'm just not recalling longer than 87-yard TD that Joe made. And I remember what I said about the score, 17. Well, how do you think we got the 2 extra points and the field goal? Joey the Toe. Exactly. Now, having said that, now, I always coached the defense, so other guys were calling the plays, so I didn't say, boy, I called that 87-yard play, I'm a smart coach. Not the case at all. I was running the defense for Coach Healy, and Joe played safety for us. Now, I've had 6'3", $170 kids, and they were nice kids, but they weren't very tough. That was not true of Joey Costen. Joey was one tough kid. He was going to come up and whack you, and boy did I like that. And one game in particular, when you play safety, you have to be a smart guy. You have to anticipate. You have to read the quarterback. You have to figure out what's going on. And probably one of the biggest upsets that I was ever had to deal with at Bartlett, and I saw a big guy come through the door from Shepherd Hill. Joey Thompson, where are you, Joe? If you know Joey, Joey's a real big rugged guy, and in high school, he was too. Okay, he was still a real, I don't know, 6'3", 230, big horse. And he was the small guy in the Shepherd Hill backfield. The kid in front of him ended up going to Mississippi, and he was maybe, I don't know, 6'3", 6'4", 275. So the backfield consisted of Thompson and Stearns. I've never seen a backfield quite like it. Coach Healy and I scouted, and we said, oh boy, this is going to be bad. And they were killing teams, they were destroying teams, they were scoring in the 30s. And Shepherd Hill was a very heavy favorite that evening, and they should have been the better squad. But that particular night, it turned out to be 14-10. And near the end of the game, Shepherd Hill is driving. And it looks like they're going to take the game at the end. And right at the end, Joey Costen, our safety, reads the ball, steps in front of it, in front of the ball, picks it, and saves that victory for Bartlett. I actually have that game ball on my mantle in my room. So Joe, Coach Healy had it exactly right. Joe was a special player, making special plays for us. Now, in regards to basketball, I'm pretty dumb and I don't know a heck of a lot about it. But I do understand athleticism and I do understand hustle. And I saw quite a few of Joe's games, both his junior and senior year, and I can tell you that he was a fine basketball player also. And at this time, Terry, on behalf of Joe, on behalf of Joseph, I'd like to welcome you to the Bartlett High School Hall of Fame.
Thank you, John, for those kind words about Joe. Actually, there was a lot of things I didn't know about Joe because I didn't watch him play. We didn't know each other back then. I want to thank the committee for inducting Joe into the Hall of Fame. I really want to give a special shout out to Lynn Smith, who was on my case about deadlines. As I worked 7 days a week, it was hard for me to get everything on time, and who was patient with me during this whole process. I also want to thank Joe's family and his friends for all the support you've given him over the years. All the games that you were dragged to as kids and had to watch him play, and where he played so many sports, including bowling, of all things, as a junior state bowling champion as well. You guys really supported him, and I appreciate that. I started this journey to try to get Joe inducted 8 years ago. John Zablocki, who was my daughter Rebecca's soccer coach, told me about the Hall of Fame. He says, Joey should be in the Hall of Fame, and I knew nothing about it, and I had no idea what it entailed. I didn't go to school with Joe, so I never saw him play. I've heard many stories from him, of course from him, and from others who had many stories how great of an athlete he was. Joe's playing days were long before the internet, and I couldn't go to Google and say, oh, let's put Joe Costen in there and find some information. So I was at a loss of where am I going to go to get this information. My sister-in-law Sharon, who was integral in me getting this nomination for Joe, she started cutting out newspaper articles back when Joe played Pop Warner. I had programs, I had articles. Every week, she would cut out articles from Pop Warner all the way through his 4 years of high school. There was a lot of articles. We had not only one newspaper, you had the Webster Times, You had the Patriot, the Southbridge Evening News, and the Telegram and Gazette. Every week, there was articles about Joe in the paper, and she diligently cut them out. I had a huge box filled with articles, and I had to go through them all, read them all, put them in some sense of order. And thank you, Sharon, for collecting those, because within those articles is how I got all the information I needed. And also Lynn will attest how big of a box of articles it was as she dragged it around with her for a few years. I would also like to thank Paul Kioski, who wrote a lot of those articles. They were very detailed. There was so much information in all of those, it was easy for me to put a timeline through and to get the information. Very well written, thank you very much, Paul. And when I kept rereading the articles, because there was so much information, there was a couple of articles that stood out for me. There was 2 quotes from 2 different coaches on 2 separate years that got my attention. Both Bob Paranto and Don Cushing said Joe was the most underrated player. And I think his family is going to agree with that statement. We all know Joe wasn't the most popular player, but he was an outstanding athlete who was very competitive and gave everything that he had. As John says, when Joe played football, he played offense, defense, and was the kicker. He played all the time. In basketball, he was a Telegram Gazette All-Star. He was leading scorer in his junior and senior years. He also played golf. Not that golf ever got, press time or wasn't recognized. He was also the captain of the golf team for both his junior and senior year, and he also had an 8 handicap when he was in high school. I never met anyone in my life who was more competitive than Joe. When I first met him, we used to play pool, and now he wouldn't even let me win a game or 2 to try to impress me. Then I went to my first Costen family cookout. When you have the four Costen brothers together, I quickly learned that horseshoes, wiffle ball, and croquet were a battle royale. They were all loud and proud, and they all knew the rules, and they just wanted to beat each other. And even our children were not spared. They quickly learned at an early age that Daddy wanted to win at Candyland Trouble and Go Fish. Joe was extremely proud of being a Bartlett Indian. Every Thanksgiving morning, I would hear a knock at my door, and there would be Jack Parslow looking in saying, "Can Joey come out and play?" Which we knew they were all going to the pregame festivities. They would both have their Letterman jackets on. Of course, the sleeves by then were up to here and they couldn't get it around them, but they were so proud to be alum and go into the game and represent their team. Even beyond after we were married, Joe and his father would take my daughter Megan and they would go watch Tony's girls play basketball every week. They would go watch the girls play. And when I was pregnant with my daughter Rebecca, Joe wanted to name, if we had a girl, after all the girls that played on that team. So the Neff sisters, he just was rattling one name after another. That's what we wanted to name his daughter. He would love to go watch the girls play. And then they would also go to the Clark tournament. Every year, Joe would tell me the story about him making the winning shot at the buzzer to beat Shepherd Hill in the Clark tournament. And of course, I think every year he told me this because I went to Shepherd Hill and I think he was trying to bust me. As I was reading through the articles, I realized how important that game was and what an amazing shot that was. And earlier this year, now that you're talking almost 40 years later, earlier this year I had a conversation with Dan O'Connor. Dan was a senior at Shepherd Hill that year. He was on that basketball team. And he remembered that play like it was yesterday. He had told me, he says, everything was in slow motion. Somebody had the ball, was in the last minute of the game, and the ball was passed down court. Then Joe had the ball, and right before the buzzer, somebody in the audience yelled, "Shoot!" And he let it go, and they won the game. And that over the years, I mean, for somebody to remember that almost 40 years later, you know that was a really great shot. He also loved the game of golf. He was great. He was, like I said, the captain of the golf team with a 8 handicap. I mean, and that was the one sport that he could take with him after he graduated. Some of the best times he had was on the golf course with his father and with his brothers over the years. In conclusion, I would like to say it saddens me that Joe's not here to accept this award. However, I'm sure he's with his brother Willie and his mom, and they're watching this, and he's grinning from ear to ear with that Johto smile, and happy to have this honor bestowed to him. I would like to tell him this is well-deserved and long overdue. This is your moment, and enjoy every second of it. We love you, and we are all very proud of you. Thank you all very much.